because we really do want to bring people in to understand and really give you permission to go ahead and get started at learning trust law, because this is so vitally important to the improvements that we need in contract affairs and honor, and to be able to make America great again like you've come up with.
I think so. I think so. Back in the day, there was a guy I think you're familiar with. I think Spooner. He wrote a book called Invisible Contracts. Hey, listen, my
Uh-huh.
dog is going nuts, Dave.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Yep. Well, I'm going to keep going here while you get
I
while
guess I
Michael
only
throws.
just wanted to say hello to you or something, you know.
Yeah, right. Hi, Ollie. Ollie. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well,
This is a lot.
I think it was a Lysander Spooner or something like that. He wrote a book called Invisible Contracts, and I recognized years ago that that's the trust. People didn't understand how a trust can exist just by word of mouth or implied deeds. You know, our deeds imply our trust, right? So,
Uh-huh.
all of these things, unless you have knowledge of it, if all you have knowledge of, did I set my hand to it, right? Then
Mhm.
you don't you lack a little bit of knowledge about how the court system and government works in America. Uh, so yeah, and then of course understanding that a contract can exist upon one party's promise to do a thing, and what is that? That's on the back of of the uh, the check, right? If we
Endorsement.
endorse the check, then we promise that we're going to do a thing. And then I had a conversation with a guy the other day about something called an accommodation party, and I
Ah,
said, hey man, please go to the UCC and read what an accommodation party is, and understand that if you don't disclaim it, it's presumed that you are an accommodation party. And so we
that's right.
want to do that. We want to say, okay, no, I don't want to be an accommodation party here, right?
Yeah. I thought of a terrific way to view that I think anybody can understand too. I mean, it's great to understand the inner workings of accommodation party and even know how to find the UCC and find a word search in the UCC, like you're suggesting. That's wonderful, especially if you're a gold student and you're really intent on learning. But here's another way to look at being an accommodation party. If you do endorse, what you're doing is you're promising not to redeem. If you
Yes,
redeem, yeah, but that's the same thing as accommodation party, I believe. I didn't go to the UCC to figure that out. Accommodation party means you're part of the security.
that is
And
correct. Yes.
and that security is that I'm going to take this note and I will not redeem it for lawful money. I'm going to pass it on as legal tender, or whatever you want to call this, the value that the Fed has in it through its operations. Okay, I'm going to pass it on at that value. I'm going to take it down to the store and pass it on without redeeming it. Okay, that's what you promise when you endorse. You're
Hmm.
promising not to redeem this, and if you can look at it as a stock certificate. You're not going to redeem this stock certificate, or you can look at it as an insurance policy. I'm not going to redeem. I'm not going to make the proper claim on this insurance policy. Okay, I'm going to pass this insurance policy on for the value that's in it. Okay, I'm not going to try and get the value of lawful money out of it.
Yeah, it really is it's a kind of drawing a line in the sand, and the thing that I think that a lot of people get mixed up or get tied up in is the idea that there's so many people out there talking about sovereignty and things of that nature, and
Uh-huh.
we're not in any way, shape, or form saying that if you
Right.
redeem lawful money, you've left the United States, and no, and actually we're saying no, where you're actually coming into adherence with the laws of the United States, and such that we're throwing out the use of the central bank, this and those who have the power or the interest to print money, excuse me, to print notes
Uh-huh.
that are central bank issue. and
Yes.
we're returning to the Treasury of the United States and going to what the Proverbs declare as a true balance. Right?
You know, yeah, you know what just occurred to me, and this is a great segue back to the point of the video about opening up a redeemed lawful money
Hmm.
um, account, is that you can, when you're putting this to the Myrtle Tree Solutions logo for YouTube, you might bring in a couple images right now. One of them being that $100 U.S. note that
Hmm.
you encountered, and then bring up a regular $100 bill from the Federal Reserve and show the difference in the seals right here in the
Right.
video for the visitor, so that they can start to get an idea um, of what you're doing is you're still in contract. And that's one of the things the Patriot mythology does is, allodial title and complete ownership and so forth. And no, you still don't own it because you're still under the protection of the state.
Yeah,
But the state
you're the
that you're
registered
dealing with,
owner, not all ownership of property is in the state, all right, and
uh,
the mere control or possession of the property, which is registered owner, is a function of law. So
yeah,
you're the highest form of owner under law. How about to say it like that, right?
yeah.
Yep.
And so who are you contracting with? And those bills will actually show the visitor quite plainly who you're contracting with when you endorse is the central banking Federal Reserve, and who you're contracting when you non-endorse or you redeem is the United States Treasury.
Absolutely. Yep.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay, well,
yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to
Did you have more?
segue into the idea of setting up a checking account and go from there. I mean,
Uh-huh.
unless you have
Well,
some other thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is that thought, but I'm going back to the new suitor, I mean, excuse me, the new gold member who
Hmm.
was expecting one thing and looking around and finding another. What he was finding is extensive explanation about endorsement. See, if you have the confidence and security building measures of understanding endorsement and redemption, then you'll sit down at that with the customer service representative at your bank, and you'll be knowledgeable, and they'll be looking to you for the answers and an education, and they'll be encouraged and excited to learn how this actually works. I know that bankers and bank managers are talking about this, and a lot of them are scared of things they don't understand. So
Yeah.
if you come in there and you're willing to teach and explain it and so that it's plain and easily understood, you'll walk out with a wonderful win-win experience.
Well, I got to
And
be honest. I'll tell you just real quick about.
uh-huh,
I've opened up a lot of these checking accounts over the years. I mean, we've been doing this since '04, I think, and so and many different banks. And I have found that when I first started doing it, I lacked confidence, and so
uh-huh,
they could hear it in my voice, they could see it on my face, and
right.
they would then ask me about it. But after a while, I realized that this is a game we're playing, and with any game like Monopoly, you learn the rules before you start to play, right?
Yeah,
So
if
I
you want to get anywhere, yeah.
Right. So now that I understand that the signature card, in a sense, is a one signature deal. In other words, the only signature on it's mine. Right. So
Oh, yeah.
it's an undertaking, but in a sense, there's an agreement associated with that undertaking, and so when I go in and I read that agreement, I find that what's really happening here is I'm an unsecured creditor and I'm loaning the money to the bank, and the bank is setting up an account so that if I come in and make a demand, a check or a withdrawal slip for to get that money back, then they have to give it back to me. Okay,
Hmm.
subject to of course, if a superior power of the bank sees the funds. Understand that those funds are no longer mine. I loaned them to the bank under an agreement, and the bank has agreed to pay me interest on that money, albeit it's like 0.1% or something minuscule. But there's an agreement there. And
Uh-huh.
now, when I go in and set it up, I generally speaking, when they present the signature card to me, in the past I used to have a stamp ready to go. Now I no longer use a stamp because um, I found that if I try to go in there with the stamp originally, um, they won't. They got problems with that. So generally
Uh-huh.
speaking, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just write on the signature card, something like, this is how I do it. Everybody's got a different way of doing it, but I write demand is made for lawful money per 12 USC 411, and then I'll put by, and then I'll sign my name. And if I'm acting, in capacity as a manager for an LLC, like let's say
Uh-huh.
I'm acting in an LLC, I would put the name of the LLC. I would put demand is made for lawful money, and then I would put by its manager, and then I would put my name, and then I would sign. All right. And if I'm acting
Mhm.
for a trust, then I would do the same thing, by its trustee, my name, and sign. So the thing is what I'm going to then do is I'm going to tell the guy, the banking guy, I'm going to say, listen, you know, I keep records, and especially
Mhm.
if I'm acting for an LLC or corporation or a trust, you know, I'm acting for more than just myself, and they're going to want to see, what did I do here? So I need copies, and so
Right.
the guy will get up. He ain't gonna want to do it, but they always do it. He'll get up and go make you a copy. And if the guy asks you, he says, "Hey, what's this signature?" It's so
Right.
easy. It's so easy, not to script, but I mean, confidence always wins the day. And the way I generally put people to sleep is I'll say, "Oh yeah, I do that for tax reporting purposes." At that
Okay.
point, they have gone to sleep. All
Yeah.
right,
That's right.
it's nighty night, right?
Yeah.
And if I get into, are you a lawyer or are you giving me legal advice, which I used to do in the day, it's contentious, and you might find you might not get what you want if you're contentious. So why be contentious? Why just say, hey, I do it for tax reporting purposes? Isn't that true?
Well, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And it just puts everybody to sleep. And so what I found is over the years, I used to try to go in there and educate people, and I have
Yeah.
found that it's just not, it's a waste of my time. They're in the banking business. They should know the banking rules. If they don't know the rules and they're in the business, well, shame on them. And I
Uh-huh.
have seen banks close, and I've experienced, I told you that, about that one bank over here in
Mhm.
Cary
Yeah.
that shut
I
down
got a
their
picture of
doors.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can
well,
say.
when their bean counter showed up, they realized that FDIC wasn't going to cover them for all the book entries they'd made up, right?
Uh-huh.
And and they went out of business.
Right. Okay.
So
Well, I tell you what, on that note, what somebody has mentioned to me is that the banker, the customer assistance clerk, will say, okay, we'll just sign the digital pad. I'll print it out and then give you a copy of it.
no,
And so,
I
yeah, you
never
don't want to
ever
go
will
that
do
way
that.
because,
Right.
yeah, because once you've signed that digital pad, that digital signature can be used other ways. You don't want to start on distrust and mention that, but just say, no, I need to put my signature on the paper. So print it out, and then I'll put my signature on the paper, and then you can take a copy and digitize that. You see,
Absolutely,
now,
they can, and they do that
yeah,
every day. All their checks, everything gets scanned in, so it's not a
right.
problem.
And they might start arguing with you that they can't do that. Okay, I had one bank clerk do that, but argue that, well, we can't do that. My computer won't do that. But that's why I've got these 4 points. We should take a look at these 4 points, and we'll cover some of the things we've just said. But it
Okay.
starts. This is off the footnote that
Okay.
goes with the link.
I'm looking
On
at it right
the
now.
Join Now page. Yeah. If I were to create the illusion a script works, it would probably read something like, here's point number 1. Do not be in a hurry or wait until you are desperate. Remember, there are banks just around the corner. What
Amen.
do you think of that?
I think that's great because, I mean, I always tell people, if the first girl you ask to dance to the prom says no, ask another. And there's plenty of banks out there, and
Mhm.
don't fall in love with one. It just, just so if somebody, that's in other words, they don't have to do business with you. That, in fact,
Right.
once you open up the account in Lawful Money, there's nothing compelling them to keep it open. They can close it
Uh,
at their discretion at any time. right?
And yeah, and additionally, it just occurred to me on the other from the other angle. Once you open up an account, you can practice on a bank that you don't like.
Yeah,
See,
sure.
because once you open up an account, you can either close it or if it's not costing you anything, just leave it there as a backup account.
Absolutely. I literally have got accounts all over town that I consider my backup accounts that I've just lodged a little bit of funds in there. Because you can start
Hmm.
playing around and go and finding banks that won't charge you fees to have an account open. And, and when you find that, you just park a little bit in there and it's your backup account in case, something else happens, right?
Yeah, and so if you do have a prize bank, like let's say Wells Fargo, then you can practice on the other accounts, build up your confidence before you go in, and you have a much better chance of developing a real good redeeming lawful money relationship with Wells Fargo.
Well, I got to tell you though, Dave, of the number one factor in getting this done is your confidence level. If
Uh-huh.
you are confident in yourself and you project confidence, you give permission to the clerk to do what you want done. Confidence wins the
Hmm.
day.
Well, that's point two. Your preparedness and confidence will be playing a key role in giving the banker permission to allow basically free banking services.
Yeah, but don't explain it to them like that. Okay, they're in the banking
Yeah.
game, and the clerk is not going to understand what you're doing. Period. Nor is the one who's going to open it up. The guy who opens up the checking account, he doesn't understand the meaning of your signature. That's what
Right.
legal department looks at, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, if he says to you something like, "Hey, look, I don't know about this signature. We're going to have to run that up legal, and it may come back." You say, "Okay, well, thank you very much, and let me make sure I get these copies here, and okay, and have a great day," right? And
Hmm. Yeah.
I, every single time they say that to me, I just smile and wave, and I go ahead the next day and start using the account, and nothing ever, has ever closed. Okay.
Well, that's number three. Okay, in this list of things that if I was to try and form a script, okay, do not expect that the banker is obligated to open interest-bearing accounts when you have effectively withdrawn your participation from reserve banking.
Right, but now here's the thing. I would like when I go in and I set up a checking account. Like for instance, for let's say I've got a trust and I'm the trustee and I want to set up a checking account. I go in and I negotiate the best deal I can get for checking, right? And I'm trying
Uh-huh.
to get no fees if I can. If they offer that, I want no fees. And if they want to pay me interest, great, I'll take it,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Do not
Um,
expect it. Yeah.
Right, but I don't sit here and say, "Oh, I'm using lawful money and blah blah blah." No, 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 no. The
All
law,
right.
I'm not going to try to educate this guy because most of the words that I'm going to say are going to go right over his head, and he's going to think this guy's nuts, right? So,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, what it just occurred to me is either way, whether you're contracting with the Federal Reserve through endorsement or you're contracting with the U.S. Treasury through non-endorsement or redemption, either way, that's a trust and you have fiduciary responsibility to earn money. That's what fiduciary responsibility is. So yeah, you're looking for the best deal that you can get. I'm saying do not expect it. Do not act like you have to give me interest on this account if they understand that you're redeeming lawful money and you're making a claim that removes you from reserve banking, which is effectively where they earn their money.
right, exactly. So why even say a word to them? Just go in there and try to get the best deal you can. Don't tell them what you're doing. Just sign it like you sign. No one can tell you how to sign a document. If they want to do business with you, they'll take it. They'll take your money and they'll open the account and away you go to do your business. And
Yeah, that's right.
you know,
Respect them as a professional clerk.
right.
It's capable that their job is to open bank accounts.
And a
So
knowledgeable clerk. They're in the business. Now
uh,
granted, let's just talk practice. Most of
okay,
the clerks we run into don't know. They don't have a clue what that means, right? So who am I to practice law and give them an opinion? So what I just say is,
yeah,
hey, I do it for tax reporting purposes, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right,
yeah.
yeah, You know.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to 4, which we've already covered throughout this coffee chat.
Hmm.
Most bankers will insist that you sign a digital pad. They will print out the signature on the contract. You do not need trust that the signature is not also being used on naked contracts this way. Insist on signing on paper, and then you can use a redeemed lawful money rubber stamp. Just say that you need to sign on paper for your records and that a copy of the digital signature on the signature card is adequate.
Oh yeah, and I'll speak to the stamp too, and then I'll go back to the conversation. Um,
Hmm.
yes, like when I use a trust, generally I'll go out and buy a stamp because I mean if I'm dealing with multiple money orders or checks or whatever, I don't my hand gets tired, so I'm going to go buy
Yeah.
get a stamp made, you know, and what I'll do is I'll sign the name of the trust. I'll get a stamp made, which basically might say, you know, like, you know, I use, again, this is what I use. I know you use redeemed lawful money. I use demand is made for lawful money per 12 USC
Uh-huh.
411. And then I'll put a colon, and then typically, you know, I'll have a place for the signature, you know, with sign below all that, right? But
Uh-huh.
um, why, you know, why make your hand tired doing that if you got 14 checks to deposit? You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, but
you
I
know,
think your point is the signature card is actually just a one-time signature, so you
that's
don't
right.
need to save that writing. You can write in your demand easily.
I would absolutely write my demand on a signature card. You pull a stamp out for a signature card. I used to do that in the past when Wachovia was before it was bought out by Wells Fargo, and that lasted for about 2 years until they unilaterally said, "Hey, anybody that got a hold of this stamp could, you know, get on your account. So we have a security problem here." So
Oh,
what's more
okay.
important to them is they can pull up that signature card and they can look at the signature of the trustee and go, yeah, that matches. And yeah, how it's clothed, they could care less about, right? But I
Right.
care, and I want a copy of that because it preserves my intent, and intent is everything. So, um, so yes, I always tell the clerk assisting me to open the account. Especially if I'm doing it in the name of a trust or a corporation or LLC, something like that. I need this, you know, for my records because I'm not just acting for myself. There's other people that are interested, and they need to be assured that this is what happened. So,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
thanks. I think I'll take a moment to edit this step 4 then,
Okay.
and then if the visitor listens to the video, they'll see what the edit is about.
Okay, great. Well, now we're coming up on 25 minutes. I'll give you the last
Uh,
word, brother. Go ahead.
Well, I think that one of my first hard lessons in traffic court was about scripting, and I felt like taking my big constitution that I'd carried along with me. Well, that was a long time ago. I've grown so much since then, but I felt like throwing it at the judge and saying, "You're not following the script," you know. And I remember that was Judge Peters up in Cripple Creek, and he would have just, if I'd have done that, he would have just been there smiling, going, "You're so entertaining. You are so
Hmm.
entertaining." You know, and it's like you can't make this stuff up, and there's nobody else like you in the world. And I'm sure glad you're in my courtroom, just keeping me company.
That's right. That's right. The scripts never helped
Right.
anybody, you know. I mean, in fact, there's just real one quick. There's a in the Bible. There's this lady that comes to Jesus, and Jesus looks at her and says, "Who gave you these words, woman?" I mean, any judge can hear a
Right.
script, or any clerk can hear a script coming a mile away, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Michael Joseph, and it's great to chat with you.
Oh, awesome, Dave. Listen, have a great day. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right.